Hey everyone, Cody Menz here, with another, I guess, special edition. I think I'm going to be labeling this a What's New video. I haven't done one of these in quite some time. I'm kind of slacking here on YouTube. However, this is a very important, I guess, moment for World of Tanks. At least in my opinion, a lot of players, CCs, kind of share the same opinion. Watch their videos, for their takes. I'm going to be trying to keep this as short as possible and to the point instead of more ranting. But honestly, after playing this game for, almost 12 years now, this has me kind of a little bit bummed. And I'll go over, the why. It kind of has to go with experimental equipment here. So yeah, it's one of this thing like, what is experimental equipment? I'm going to link, the article and stuff that you're going to see here, and I'm going to go over in the description. And essentially, as of like today, it's kind of a weird release. We saw it come out at the end of 2022 and I think 1.19 update the public test server, and it was so negatively received by the community and CCs and everybody. Wargaming pulled it and didn't basically go forward with releasing it like they had planned because nobody wants this. Like, the way they're trying to put it in, and I'll explain why, it's horrible as a player. It's devaluing essentially your time, effort, and money spent in the game. And it's something, was there really a need to add a fourth type of piece, fourth type of equipment? No. Is there a reason to add a fourth currency into the game after 11 plus years? No. And really the only reason I've kind of fallen on, and like the only reason for this, is essentially to monetize equipment more directly, and basically another little carrot to dangle out there in front of you to get you to play special events and spend more time in the game. Thought that people cared about bounty and bond equipment for that, and tanks, because they haven't even released all the types of bounty and bond equipment that they could for pieces of equipment, going off of what equipment has so far. But here we are. In any event, though, as of today, they paused. They're giving away six of experimental equipment, and also components go along with it, because Wargaming doesn't know how their game works, and the 50% off equipment sale seems to be breaking it. A lot of people were complaining um, because one of the way to get components, going into that in a minute, is to break the equipment. They were getting basically 50% of that, and it was screwing up some people who logged on and basically were playing early in the day and getting stuff, and yeah, it's delayed. They don't really have an ETA on when the giveaway is starting, which, for those that have played World of Tanks for as long as I have, or even if you've only played for a couple years, when has Wargaming ever started a, I guess, new addition to the game and like, hey, here's six pieces of, like, say, bond equipment or bounty equipment here, free? They're trying to smooth the player base over, because this is not in the player's interest here, this edition. It's, everyone has basically been negative up to this point, hence why it got delayed by a couple months, and all they came back with was making it like 1% worse on some of the stats. Essentially, though, what's experimental equipment? So it's a fourth type of equipment to where it functions kind of like bounty equipment, where you have to upgrade it to level 3 to get the full effects. However, what it does is it combines two pieces of equipment that we know into one. Sounds pretty broken. Now, stats here, and this is where you can read through Wargaming's article. They do a lot of kind of trying to smooth you over to where, well, it's not 100% as good as another piece of equipment and stuff like that. And they're talking about bond equipment, where you're getting something that's just under bond equipment stat wise. However, you're getting two pieces of equipment pushed into one. A lot of the attributes, fire control system is an enhanced gun laying drive and a vertical stabilizer put together. You have a turbocharger and improved rotation mechanism put together, and you have improved hardening and a modified configuration. Pretty good combos, to where they're essentially, it feels like they don't know their own game, because they're trying to tell you like this is meant to help you customize your tanks more, You know, we're giving you more options and this and that. It's not broken, it's balanced. But when you think about like the things that people go for, you'd rather have, say in this case, all of these, you know, basically buffs for your tanks, where yes, they're just under, you know, bond, you know, improved equipment levels, but they're still freaking good to where you'd rather have this on here instead of putting, you know, say a IRM and a turbocharger separately. You know, and it's not like they've even released a bond IRM yet, from my understanding. So it's one of those things where it's really weird to where it almost feels like they're trying to tell you it's not broken, but you can listen to players a lot more knowledgeable and better than I am. This is going to be competitively, a lot of these are going to be must-haves competitively and getting the most out of certain tanks, and it really helps specifically some tanks like heavy tanks. You know, the turbocharger mobility whatever the hell thing is really nice. Survival improvement suite, again, another really good thing for heavy tanks, and these two things combined is freaking awesome. And then you throw like a rammer in or something as the third one. They also throw this little tidbit, which Wargaming, they always set themselves up in the future whenever there's something brand new like this. Like we saw with bonds, to where they said they would never, you know, sell bonds, you know, basically for money. They skirted the lines of that a little bit, where they've sold like missions and stuff for bonds alongside some things, but not often. But in this, you know, that's nowhere to be found in this component thing. Maybe they'll sell them in the future directly to you. Maybe they'll sell for gold. Who knows what? But basically, they even say here they might even introduce experimental equipment with 3 or more parameters from existing pieces of equipment. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. And then they even throw this in here, even parameters derived from other game mechanics not present in any other equipment. So you're looking at it to where, you know, say you spend 5+ years playing this game, bond equipment, you know, bounty equipment the past several years. They haven't even fleshed those two equipment types out all the way with all the pieces that they could. And now they're putting in a fourth piece of equipment that everyone, you know, is pretty knowledgeable is saying is really freaking good and is going to be like must-haves. And a fourth type of currency that you can't get unless Wargaming lets you get. So all of those bonds, credits, gold is basically worthless when it comes to this. Not worthless entirely, but it's essentially Wargaming, and this is the issue I have at hand, devaluing all of your time, your effort, and especially, you know, bonds, which is the end game currency for tier 10 tanks, your tier 9 premiums, all the events up till now. You know, it's your end game currency. They're essentially devaluing that. So you as a player, you should be pretty pissed, because as you go through and like read about this, components essentially, you know, being a fourth type of currency, it's just bonds, but they put the name components on it. The where if you look at how they function, it's literally just bonds, you know, the same type of function where you can only use it for experimental equipment. The where Wargaming could very easily have just added in experimental improved equipment, the where you could spend bonds to upgrade it like bounty equipment, and it would have different attributes, you know, like they're doing. Wouldn't have an issue with that, to where yes, there's some balance concerns, but using bonds, players know that already. It's not adding in a fourth type of currency here, which as you can see is pretty complicated, to where right now they have the giveaway event to give away 6 pieces of equipment, and there's some missions to get components once it starts back up when they get past the sale or whatever issues that they're having, where you have to spend components to upgrade them. Sounds like bonds. And essentially, if you break your pieces of equipment that you don't want, you get components back. The where right now they give you 6 pieces, but the only way to get level 3 experimental equipment is to break some of them. It's a really complex and honestly kind of stupid system, and it's really set up. It feels like they're trying, I guess, to have some sort of collection or like RPG element, but also they, you know, they basically say that they're gonna do this in Steel Hunter. Most likely it's probably going to be in the Battle Pass in some form, and events coming up to where it seems like they're kind of moving away from bonds in a sense. But like, what's the point? You have this end game currency already, and some people have lots of it, some people go grinding it, and why not stick with what's in the game already, to where like literally the only thing like I could think of is they're only doing this because they don't want you, the existing player, to be able to use what you've already earned in the game, say bonds, and you earn already. They created essentially what is bonds, but labeled it as components, the where they're going to be able to control how you potentially buy them directly from them in the shop. You're going to, they're not going to, and when it comes to the battle passes, we've seen like bounty equipment and stuff, but they're probably going to throw components in there like in the improved pass, and extra equipment when it comes to in the battle passes. And it's essentially trying to monetize you. And as a separate element, I was kind of looking into why they would do this too, to where one big thing about wargaming and essentially World of Tanks, for being as old of a game as it is, they're always trying to get you to play more, obviously spend money, and it's kind of a balance between veteran players, people call whales, people spend a lot of money, competitive players, newer players, casual players, people that jump in at little bits of the time. We saw kind of recently field mods, they added that in. That was pretty much, a lot of people didn't feel like they should push it out. It wasn't polished, shouldn't incorporate it, especially the stat elements of it. But they mainly push that out to monetize your existing players, say like myself, that have 700 plus tanks. You don't really have much to grind for. Add it credit grind, and add it basically experience grind, for those tanks. Like, I'm still working on a shit ton of them. This is kind of the same way, to where equipment system, is it currently monetized? Your bounty equipment, I guess, is kind of tied to a battle pass, spending some money on that. And your bond equipment is, tied to grinding it out in in-game events to get you played. So now this fourth type of equipment comes in here. They're very vague on getting components, and really, like, when you go into your equipment here, like, I don't have any because I didn't play before they paused the event. Like, it says get components, it says just unable to disassemble experimental equipment into components. You have no equipment. Like, is that going to be the only way to get it? Or, is there going to be, essentially just missions or your special events and stuff like that? And it really just says, reward it for completing missions and during certain in-game events, to where it seems to me like this is them trying to put a hard monetization into the equipment system now with this fourth type of equipment, and also kind of make it a must-have competitively, under the guise of giving you more options, to kit out your tank and stuff like that to keep it interesting. But if they really cared, they would just throw it into the current bond improved equipment and just add in the same elements, but with bonds instead of components. But who knows? Like, could this be overreacting? I'm not the only one that feels this way. And it seems like really they're rushing to push this in as fast as possible, and they're throwing free stuff at people to try to get past that initial negative reaction, the where instead of listening to the community, like, I feel like nobody, say going into the fall of last year before they announced experimental equipment, nobody really said, Wargaming, you need to revamp the equipment system. It's what we want you to do, 100%. I don't think any player would have freaking said that at all. And yet here we are, going into 2023, and this is, aside from the rocket boost Chinese tanks, and this is really their first big thing that they're pushing in, is something that to me adds no value as a player. It literally hurts you as a player, and it's not a good look, going into this year. between this and then how they monetize the 283 with the rental battles and being able to get the tank permanently for 99% of players. And some people were put off about the Terminator, basically putting the tank behind a paywall. I get it a little bit because it was a collab with the Terminator, essentially franchise, but also the Lunar New Year event. As you hear the drums in the background, they lock the main prize behind essentially a paywall to the Chinese light tank that you can get. You have to spend, it's like 14-15 bucks or something to actually get it. If you grind out the whole event, you can't get enough points essentially in the event to get it. But in any event, let me know your thoughts about this. Balance wise, I didn't go too much into it here because it's mainly the new currency type that's the issue at hand. Because balance wise, like these two tanks, one has full bond equipment on it, and then the other has the improved or experimental equipment. Really, as you see here, balance wise, it's not too much of an issue, but the experimental equipment does help the ammo rack on the 279E here, which is really nice. Huge bonus. The module, where this traverses its gun a bit better and the hull a bit better. However, it has a little bit less hit points than the other 279E, and the other 279E is a little bit faster with the top speed, and that's using essentially a rammer and then the two pieces of experimental equipment here. So this one does help with the module durability here, whereas over here with the bond, I do have the improved hardening here, essentially for bond, and then these two here, where statistically that's not the main issue to be focusing on. It's why, as you as a player, should kind of be happy about them basically diminishing what you've earned for by playing and also paying, and basically just taking a game for 11 plus years and changing the economy that doesn't benefit the player at all here. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and hope to see you in another video at some point, and let me know what you think in the comments. See ya.